Imagine walking out of your workplace for the very last time. You have handed in your security badge, your retirement accounts have finally hit that magical target number, and you are stepping into a future funded entirely by your investments. If you have done your research, you are likely relying on the golden standard of financial independence, the 4% rule. It is a simple framework that promises if you follow the formula, your money will outlive you. But what happens when a financial rule designed in the 1990s collides with the economic realities of the 2020s and beyond? Does the historical data still hold up, or are millions of people unknowingly walking into a blind spot that could leave them stranded late in life? And here's the twist most videos miss. This rule can actually fail you from two completely opposite directions. Today, we are breaking down the real mechanics of the 4% rule, the specific vulnerabilities hiding in the original data, why being too scared of it is its own kind of mistake, and how modern retirement planning has evolved beyond a single percentage to actually protect your wealth in an unpredictable world. I'm Tony, and welcome to Grow with Tony, where we decode the mechanics of money and investing so you can build real, lasting wealth. Before we get into the numbers, just a quick reminder that we are exploring financial history and educational concepts today. This isn't personalized investment advice. Every situation has different variables, so always apply your own judgment and do your own research before making any decisions. To understand the limitations of the 4% rule, it helps to first understand exactly how it was built. It gets treated like an undeniable law of physics in the personal finance world, but its origins are surprisingly recent. The framework started in 1994 when a financial advisor named William Bengen published a paper in the Journal of Financial Planning. At the time, advisors were often telling retirees they could safely withdraw 7% or even 8% of their portfolios every year simply because the stock market had historically averaged returns in that range. But Bengen realized something critical. Average returns do not equal safe withdrawal rates. So he looked at historical market data going back to 1926. He tested a specific portfolio, 50% large-cap U.S. stocks and 50% intermediate-term Treasury bonds, and he ran it through every rolling 30-year retirement window in that history, subjecting it to the Great Depression, World War II, and the severe stagflation of the 1970s. Bengen discovered that 4.5% was the absolute safe max, which is just his term for the highest initial withdrawal rate that would have survived the single worst 30-year stretch in American history. 4 years later, in 1998, 3 professors from Trinity University published what is now known as the Trinity Study. They expanded Bengen's work by testing different mixes of stocks and corporate bonds over timeframes, ranging from 15 to 30 years, and they put hard numbers on it. For a 30-year retirement with a 50-50 portfolio, withdrawing 4% and adjusting for inflation survived roughly 95%. Or more of all the historical periods they tested. Push that to 5%, and the success rate dropped to around 68%. Go to 6%, and it fell to about 43%. So the reason 4% became the gold standard wasn't that it's a magic number. It's that the odds fall off a cliff the moment you reach for more. Their findings confirmed Bengen's data and cemented the 4% rule into the cultural lexicon. Now, the mechanics of the rule are specific, and they're frequently misunderstood. It does not mean you withdraw 4% of your current portfolio balance every single year. If you have a $1 million portfolio, you withdraw $40,000 in year 1. In year 2, you completely ignore what the stock market did. Instead, you look at inflation. If inflation was 3%, you adjust that initial $40,000 up by 3%, so you withdraw $41,200. You continue this inflation-adjusted path every year for 30 years. It gives you a steady, predictable paycheck. But as we're about to see, that rigid predictability is exactly what creates the risk. On paper, the historical data is solid, but financial planning cannot rely only on the past. When you examine this strategy against real-world conditions, several structural vulnerabilities start to emerge. The most important one is a mathematical reality called sequence of returns risk. When you are accumulating wealth, the order of your annual returns does not matter. If you experience a market crash in year 2 or year 20, as long as the average annual return works out the same, your ending balance is identical. But the moment you switch from adding money to withdrawing money, the math completely flips. Let's walk through why. Consider a retiree who hits a severe bear market in the first 3 years of retirement, where the portfolio drops by 20%, because the 4% rule dictates a rigid withdrawal amount adjusted only for inflation. That retiree has to sell off assets to generate the cash, no matter what prices are doing. When asset prices are down 20%, you have to sell roughly 20% more shares just to raise the exact same dollar amount. And here's the killer. Those shares you liquidated are permanently gone. They can't participate in the eventual recovery. By selling heavily near the bottom just to cover basic living expenses, the portfolio suffers permanent damage. Even if the market goes on a historic, record-breaking bull run over the next decade, the portfolio might never fully recover because the asset base left to compound is simply too small. Now flip it around. If a retiree gets a massive bull market in their first 5 years, their portfolio grows so large that even a severe crash in year 20 barely dents their standard of living. So the historical success of the 4% rule hinges heavily on avoiding a bad sequence of returns early in retirement. It quietly assumes the retiree will blindly execute the exact same sell orders whether the market is hitting all-time highs or scraping the bottom of a recession. That's why the unluckiest retiree in Bengen's whole study was the person who retired into the stagflation of 1966, and it's why people who retired right before 2000 or 2008 felt so much anxiety. They were living sequence of returns risk in real time. The second vulnerability is the timeline itself. Both Bengen's original research and the Trinity Study were built around a traditional 30-year retirement, the assumption being that you retire around 65 and need the money to last until about 95. But the landscape has shifted. The financial independence, retire early movement, often shortened to FIRE, has popularized leaving traditional work in your 50s, 40s, or even 30s. When the timeline stretches from 30 years to 40 or 50 years, the probability of the 4% rule succeeding drops noticeably. The longer your portfolio has to survive, the higher the chance it runs into a truly severe, unpredictable economic disruption, a longer stretch of high inflation, or a decade-long flat market. Extrapolating a 30-year rule of thumb onto a 50-year timeline introduces a real margin of error, which is why many planners suggest an early retiree dial the starting withdrawal rate down into the low to mid 3% range to reach the same level of historical safety. The third vulnerability is about valuations and starting conditions. The historical data that validated the 4% rule mostly represents the 20th century, a period of extraordinary American economic expansion. And for much of that era, bonds paid a substantial yield. It wasn't unusual for safe government or corporate bonds to yield 5%, 6%, or more, which gave retirees a reliable engine of cash flow that supported a 4% withdrawal without needing to sell many stocks at all. Modern conditions can look different. When interest rates are low, the income from the bond side of a portfolio shrinks. And when stock markets trade at historically high valuations, often measured by something called the Shiller PE, or cyclically adjusted price-to-earnings ratio, which just compares prices to a decade of earnings to smooth out the noise, future expected returns tend to be lower. If you start the 4% rule when stocks are expensive and bond yields are low, you're essentially beginning retirement on a harder difficulty setting. And it's worth noting that the Great Depression, which the rule was stress-tested against, actually began with deflation, where falling prices lower your required withdrawal. Stagflation is the nastier problem because low growth plus high inflation forces you to pull larger and larger amounts from a shrinking portfolio. There's also the friction of daily reality. Beautiful financial models often ignore two huge real-world drains: fees and taxes. The original studies calculated gross returns. They didn't account for tax drag. If everything sits in a Roth IRA, taxes aren't an issue. But most people hold their wealth in tax-deferred accounts like traditional 401ks or IRAs, where withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income. If you need $40,000 of actual spending power, you might have to withdraw 48 or 50,000 to net that after taxes, add an advisor charging a 1% fee, or funds with meaningful expense ratios. And those costs come straight out of your growth. Stack a 4% withdrawal on top of a 1% tax drag and a 0.5% fee drag, and you're effectively pulling closer to 5.5% a year, which lands you well outside the safety zone. Bengen and the Trinity Study defined. Now, before we get to the fixes, I have to be straight with you about the other side of this story, because so far, it sounds like nothing but bad news, and that would be misleading. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. Because the 4% rule was built to survive the single worst starting point in history, it is deliberately extremely conservative. And that has a real consequence. In the large majority of historical retirements, people who followed the 4% rule didn't run out of money at all. They died with far more than they started with. Sit with that for a second. They spent 30 years being cautious, skipping the trips, holding back on comforts they had genuinely earned, quietly bracing for a disaster that, in their particular timeline, simply never arrived. Running out of money is a real risk. But so is the opposite, being so afraid of the worst case that you underlive your whole retirement and leave a giant unspent pile behind. And the strongest proof that the rule leans conservative comes from Bengen himself. He never treated 4.15% as the final answer. In 1997, once he added small-cap stocks to the mix, he raised his safe starting rate to 4.3%. In a 2006 book, he moved it up to 4.5%. And by 2021, with broader diversification, he put it closer to 4.7%. The man who invented the rule has openly said that, for most people, following it rigidly is too cautious. It's also worth knowing that more recent research from Morningstar, using rigid inflation-adjusted spending and a high safety target, has landed a little below 4% in some years and moves around year to year, so the honest answer is that the safe rate isn't one fixed number carved in stone. It's a moving range, and you should check the latest read, rather than trusting a figure from decades ago. So the real danger isn't only running out of money. It's treating a single worst-case number as gospel in either direction, either blindly overspending or needlessly starving your own retirement, which is exactly why the modern answer isn't panic and cut to the bone. It's flexibility. So how do thoughtful retirees actually build a portfolio that survives the real world on both sides? The solution is to stop treating a static formula as a lifelong autopilot and shift to dynamic, responsive strategies. Think of a retirement portfolio like a small business, designed to fund a lifestyle, and a good business adjusts to changing conditions. The first evolution is a dynamic withdrawal strategy, most famously the guardrails approach, often associated with the Guyton-Klinger rules. Instead of blindly raising your spending by inflation every year, no matter what, you set an initial target withdrawal plus an upper and a lower boundary. If the market rallies hard and your portfolio balloons, your withdrawal rate naturally drifts down because the balance is so high. And when it drifts far enough, you hit the upper guardrail and give yourself a permanent raise, so you actually enjoy your money instead of dying with millions unspent. But if the market crashes and your balance drops, your fixed withdrawal might suddenly represent 5%, or 6% of a shrunken portfolio. That triggers the lower guardrail and you take a temporary pay cut, maybe a 10% trim in spending for the year, or simply freezing your inflation raise until things recover. By being willing to tighten your belt just a little during severe downturns, you neutralize sequence of returns risk because you stop dumping shares at the bottom. And honestly, this matches how humans already behave. We naturally spend a bit less when times are tough and more when times are good. The second solution is the bucket strategy. This is an asset allocation framework designed to build a wall between your daily living expenses and the wild swings of the stock market. Instead of treating your portfolio as one giant blended pool that lurches around every day, you divide it by time horizon. Bucket 1 holds immediate money, typically 2 to 3 years of living expenses in very safe places like cash, a high-yield savings account, CDs, or short-term treasury bills. Bucket 2 holds medium-term money for years 4 through 10, usually high-quality bonds and maybe some reliable dividend payers. Bucket 3 is your long-term growth engine, broad market stock index funds meant to outrun inflation over decades. The magic shows up in a crash. When stocks are high, you sell a little from Bucket 3 to refill Bucket 1. But when a recession knocks stocks down 30%, you don't have to sell a single share at a loss. You just live off the safe cash in Bucket 1 for 2 or 3 years and give the market time to heal. The Bucket strategy doesn't necessarily win on a spreadsheet, but it solves the behavioral problem. It stops panic selling because you always know exactly where your next few years of groceries are coming from, no matter what the ticker is doing. The third piece is rethinking retirement itself. The 4% rule models someone who never earns another dollar for the rest of their life. But adding even a little flexible income completely changes the math. Ideas like CoastFire or BaristaFire lean on this. If a retiree picks up passion projects, consulting, or part-time work that brings in even $15,000 or $20,000 a year, their dependence on the portfolio drops sharply. Nudging your withdrawal rate from 4% down to 2.5% or 3% pushes the historical success rate close to a near certainty even after taxes, fees, and a stretched-out 50-year timeline. It buys you an enormous margin of safety while keeping you active and engaged. And finally, modern planners rarely lean on a single historical backtest. They use Monte Carlo simulations. That's just a computer running your plan through thousands of randomized sequences of market returns and inflation. Instead of a flat yes or no, it hands you a probability, something like, this plan has an 87% chance of lasting 40 years. That lets you see the real impact of retiring 1 year later, spending slightly less, or shifting your allocation, which is a far clearer picture than a single rule of thumb. So, let me leave you with the honest bottom line. The 4% rule is not broken. It's a phenomenal diagnostic tool. It's the perfect back-of-the-napkin check to see whether you're in the right ballpark for financial independence. In fact, flip it around. Take your estimated annual spending and multiply it by 25, and you get a rough target. Want $40,000 a year? You're aiming for about $1 million. That tells you if you're on track during your saving years. But as an execution strategy for the rest of your life, a single rigid number is too blunt in both directions. Real safety comes from adaptation. It comes from respecting taxes and fees, keeping safe money set aside so a bad early market can't force your hand, staying flexible enough to trim in downturns and spend in good times, and refusing to underlive a retirement you spent decades funding. The true security doesn't come from locking in a percentage on the day you quit your job. It comes from building a resilient system that can absorb whatever an unpredictable world throws at it. So when you look at your own financial roadmap, which of these speaks to you the most? Do you like the clear mathematical boundaries of the guardrails system? Or does the psychological comfort of the bucket strategy make more sense for your peace of mind? And be honest with yourself about which trap worries you more, running out of money or being too scared to ever enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below. If you got value out of breaking this down today, hit the subscribe button to keep upgrading your financial framework. Keep building, stay adaptable, and I'll see you in the next one.